The night of our high school graduation party was supposed to be the beginning of freedom, but for me, Vincent Thompson, it became the night that shattered every wall I had built around my heart. I never expected the guy who had made my life miserable for 4 years to pull me into the shadows and kiss me with a desperation that felt like years of pent-up longing. But Riley Carter did just that, his strong hands on my shoulders, his breath hot against my skin as the distant sounds of laughter and music faded into nothing. "What the hell are you doing?" I gasped, pushing him away, my mind racing with confusion and a spark of something I refused to name. Riley's blue eyes, usually so cocky on the football field, were now filled with vulnerability I had never seen. "I've wanted to do that since sophomore year, Vince," he whispered, his voice breaking the silence. "All that hate, it was the only way I could hide how I really felt about you." The words hit me like a truck. Riley, the golden boy, the one who had tripped me in the hallway, mocked my books, and made sure everyone knew I was the nerd to avoid, he was gay too, or was this some sick joke to ruin my night? I backed up against the wooden fence, the party lights casting glowing halos around us. My family was inside the house, my conservative parents chatting with neighbors, expecting me to head to college, find a nice girl, live the American dream they had planned. Coming out was not an option, it would break their hearts. But here was Riley confessing in the dark, changing everything with one impulsive act. I wanted to run, to yell, to pretend it did not happen. Yet as he stepped closer, explaining how he had watched me from afar, how the bullying was his twisted way to protect himself from the truth, something inside me stirred. The summer stretched ahead, and for the first time I wondered if I could trust this enemy turned what? Friend. More. We agreed to meet the next day at the old park away from prying eyes. As I returned to the party, forcing a smile for my friends, my mind replayed the kiss over and over. Little did I know that moment was just the spark for a firestorm of emotions, secrets, and battles that would test everything I thought I knew about love, identity, and acceptance. The next morning I woke up with a knot in my stomach. My mom was already in the kitchen humming as she made breakfast, asking about my plans for college in Chicago. "You're going to make us proud, Vincent," she said, her eyes full of expectation. I nodded, but inside Riley's confession echoed. I texted him, half hoping he would say it was a prank. But his reply came quick. "Meet at noon." I meant every word. The park was quiet, sunlight filtering through the trees as Riley arrived, looking as nervous as I felt. We sat on a bench, the air thick with unspoken questions. He told me his story, strict father who pushed football, fear of losing his scholarship, and friends, if anyone knew. I shared mine, the silent struggle, the prayers at night to be normal. It was the first real conversation we had ever had, and by the end we were not enemies anymore. We were two guys scared of the same world. As summer days passed, our secret meetings became the highlight. We talked for hours, shared laughs, and yes, more kisses that felt right in a way nothing else did. But the fear lingered. What if someone found out? What if my family discovered I was gay? Riley's friends started noticing he was distant, asking questions. Then came the first misunderstanding. One evening I saw him at the mall with a girl from our class, laughing like old times. My heart sank. Was he using me as cover? I confronted him later, anger boiling over. "It was nothing, Vince," he insisted. "She's just a friend. You're the one I want." But doubt crept in, planting seeds of insecurity that would grow. By the end of summer, we both headed to the same university in Chicago, a coincidence or fate. The city lights promised new beginnings, but also new challenges. Our relationship deepened in stolen moments on campus, but the pressure mounted. Riley joined the football team, I focused on literature classes. Then one night after a party, a mutual friend saw us holding hands and promised to keep the secret. But secrets have a way of unraveling. College life in Chicago hit us like a whirlwind of new freedoms and hidden fears, yet every stolen glance between classes reminded me why I had risked everything for Riley. The first semester flew by with late-night study sessions that turned into whispered confessions under the glow of my dorm lamp. "Vincent, I think I'm falling hard," he told me one rainy evening, his head resting on my shoulder as we watched the city lights flicker through the window. I felt the same, but the weight of my family's weekly calls kept pulling me back. My dad would ask about girls, and I would lie through my teeth saying I was too busy with books. Riley's football practices kept him busy too, but we carved out time, sneaking away to quiet coffee shops on the edge of campus where no one knew our names. Then the first crack appeared. During a team party, one of Riley's teammates, Jake, noticed how Riley always disappeared early and started joking about it in the locker room. "You got a secret girlfriend, or what, Carter?" Riley laughed it off, but I could see the tension in his jaw when he told me later. "We have to be more careful, Vince." The misunderstanding hit harder than I expected when I spotted Riley talking closely with a girl from his literature elective outside the library. My mind raced back to high school thinking maybe the kiss on graduation night was just curiosity. I avoided his texts for 2 days until he showed up at my dorm room, soaked from the rain, eyes pleading. "It is not what you think," he said, pulling me into a hug that melted every doubt. "She was asking for notes, nothing more. I believe you now, but the fear of losing him made every day feel like walking on glass." As fall turned to winter, we grew closer, sharing our dreams. Riley wanted to coach after college. I wanted to write stories that helped kids like us feel less alone. But family pressure mounted when my parents visited for Thanksgiving, insisting I join them for church and meet the daughter of their old friend. I smiled through the dinner, my stomach twisting, knowing the truth would destroy the perfect image they had of me. Riley faced his own battle when his dad called, demanding to know why his grades were slipping. The stress built until one night after a tough game, Riley broke down in my arms, admitting he was tired of hiding. I held him tight, promising we would find a way, but deep down, I wondered if love this real could survive the world we lived in. Christmas break separated us for 2 weeks, and the distance only made the longing stronger. When we reunited on campus in January, the spark felt brighter than ever. We took a weekend trip to a small cabin outside the city, renting it under a fake name just to breathe freely. There, under the snow-covered trees, we talked about coming out someday, maybe after graduation. But life had other plans. A leaked photo from a campus event showed Riley and me standing too close, and Jake, the teammate, started asking questions again. The rumor mill began turning slowly at first, then faster. I felt the walls closing in, but Riley squeezed my hand and whispered, "We are in this together." Little did we know the real storm was just beginning as secrets started slipping out and friendships I thought were solid began to fracture under the weight of truth. The rumor spread like wildfire across campus by mid-February, turning what was once our safe haven into a minefield of whispers and sideways glances. "Vincent, did you hear about Carter and that quiet guy from English?" someone muttered in the cafeteria line one afternoon, sending my pulse racing. I kept my head down, but inside panic clawed at me. Riley met me after his practice, his face pale under the stadium lights. "Jake confronted me today," he said, voice low. "He saw the photo and asked straight out if we were together." I denied it, but he did not believe me. The betrayal stung because Jake had been Riley's closest friend since freshman year, the one who always had his back on the field. Now that loyalty felt fragile. We decided to lay low, skipping parties and meeting only in my dorm after midnight. Those quiet hours became our lifeline, filled with talks about the future and gentle reassurances that kept the fear at bay. My parents called more often, sensing something was off, and when I visited home for spring break, the pressure peaked. My mom set me up on a blind date with a girl from church, saying it was time to think about settling down. I went through the motions, smiling politely, but every second felt like a lie choking me. Riley texted me the whole night, worried, and when I finally escaped, I drove straight back to campus, needing his arms around me. "You are enough, just as you are," he whispered, kissing my forehead, and in that moment I believed him. But the cracks widened when my roommate accidentally overheard a late-night call and confronted me the next day. "I thought we were friends, Vince, why hide this?" His words were not angry, just disappointed, and I realized how isolating the closet had become. Riley faced worse when his coach pulled him aside after practice, warning that any distraction could cost him his scholarship. The stress pushed us closer, yet also tested our limits. One argument erupted when Riley suggested we tell one trusted friend for support, and I refused, terrified of the chain reaction. "You always choose fear over us," he snapped before storming out, leaving me alone with my regrets. Hours later, he returned with flowers from the campus shop, apologizing, and we made up, promising to face the next step together. As spring bloomed, the misunderstandings kept coming. A group project partner saw us leaving the library hand in hand, and the next day, awkward questions followed. I started avoiding eye contact in class, wondering if everyone knew. Then the big blow came during finals week when Jake cornered Riley in the locker room and demanded the truth. Riley finally admitted it, and Jake's reaction was a punch to the gut. He walked away saying he needed time, but the silence that followed felt like abandonment. Riley showed up at my door that night broken, and I held him as he cried for the friendship he might lose. We spent the summer planning our next year, vowing to be stronger. Moving into an off-campus apartment together felt like a small victorious space where we could be ourselves without hiding. Cooking dinner, laughing over silly movies, it all seemed perfect until my parents announced a surprise visit to see the new place. The fear returned full force, but Riley squeezed my hand and said, "We will handle it." Little did we know that visit would force the first real confrontation with my family and change the course of everything we had built. The secrets were piling up, the betrayals mounting, and the journey toward acceptance was only just beginning to test how much we were willing to sacrifice for each other. My parents arrived on a sunny Saturday morning, their car packed with homemade cookies and questions about my future. "Vincent, this place looks great," my dad said, clapping me on the back, while my mom scanned the apartment with a sharp eye. Riley had cleared out most of his things, hiding them at a friend's, but the 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom and the shared closet told a story I was not ready to explain. We played it cool, ordering pizza and talking about classes, but tension hung in the air like smoke. Then came the moment I dreaded. My mom found a photo on the fridge, a candid shot of Riley and me laughing at the cabin trip. "Who is this?" she asked, smiling at first. My heart dropped. "That's Riley, my roommate," I lied quickly, but her eyes narrowed. "He seems close." The conversation shifted to my lack of dating, and before I knew it, my dad was lecturing about family values and carrying on the Thompson name. I felt Riley's absence like a missing limb, wishing he was there to hold my hand through the storm. After they left, I called him in tears, and he rushed over, pulling me into the longest hug. "We cannot keep doing this forever, Vince," he said softly. "Something has to give." The summer brought more tests. Riley's dad showed up unannounced for a game and caught us having dinner together. The look on his face said it all, and the argument that followed in the parking lot left Riley shattered. "My son is not like that," he shouted before driving off. Riley stayed silent for days, processing the rejection while I tried to be his rock. Then came the betrayal I never saw coming. Jake, the teammate who had walked away, resurfaced, posting a vague social media story that hinted at secrets without naming names. The comments exploded, and suddenly our quiet life was under a microscope. Friends distanced themselves, parties dried up, and even professors seemed to glance longer in class. The pressure broke Riley one night when he suggested we take a break to protect his scholarship. I refused, fighting for us with everything I had. "You cannot run from who you are," I told him, and after hours of tears, we chose to stay together, stronger than before. As fall semester started, we found small joys, volunteering at an LGBTQ center on weekends where stories from others mirrored our own, giving us hope. My writing flourished, turning our pain into short stories that I shared anonymously online. Riley excelled on the field, channeling emotion into every play. But the climax built when my sister called, warning that our parents had heard rumors and were planning another visit. This time they would not leave without answers. Riley and I prepared, rehearsing the words, but nothing could ready us for the confrontation. The day they arrived, the air crackled with unsaid truths. "Dad, we need to talk," I began, voice shaking, as Riley stood beside me for support. The room fell silent, and in that moment, every sacrifice, every hidden kiss, every night of doubt led to this turning point that would either break us or finally set us free. The journey had tested our limits, but the real fight for acceptance was only beginning, and we faced it hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. The words hung in the apartment, air heavy and final. "Mom, Dad, I am gay, and Riley is my boyfriend." Silence crashed down like a wave, then my father's face twisted in disbelief. "This is a phase, Vincent," he said, voice rising. "You will grow out of it." My mother covered her mouth, tears welling as she looked between us. Riley stepped forward, calm and steady. "I love your son, sir. I have for years." The argument exploded with accusations and disappointment filling the room until my parents left, promising to pray for me. The door closed, and I collapsed into Riley's arms, sobbing for the family I might lose. The weeks that followed were the darkest yet. My phone stayed silent, no calls from home, just occasional texts from my sister checking in. Riley's scholarship hung by a thread after his coach heard whispers and warned him again. We leaned on each other more than ever, cooking meals, talking late into the night, and finding strength in small acts of defiance like holding hands on campus walks. A turning point came during a campus pride event where we volunteered together. Seeing other couples open and happy gave us courage. Riley even joined a support group for athletes coming out, and slowly the weight lifted. But betrayal struck again when Jake, the former friend, leaked a private message to the team group chat exposing our relationship fully. The backlash was swift. Riley lost his starting position, and I faced stares in every lecture hall. The pain was real, but it forced us to grow. I confronted Jake in the cafeteria, choosing words over fists. Why would you do this to him? He looked ashamed, admitting jealousy over Riley's talent and our bond. The apology came weeks later, awkward but sincere, and slowly the team began to accept Riley back one practice at a time. My family remained distant until my mother called one rainy afternoon. "We miss you, Vincent. Come home for Thanksgiving." We drove back together, nervous but united. The dinner was tense at first, with careful conversation until my father finally spoke. "I do not understand it, but you are my son." The words were not perfect, but they were a start. Riley sat beside me, squeezing my hand under the table as acceptance trickled in like sunlight after a storm. Back at college, we celebrated the small victories, planning our future. Riley eyeing coaching jobs, I applying for writing internships. The misunderstandings faded, replaced by trust built through every trial. Yet one final sacrifice loomed when Riley received an offer for a better scholarship at another school far away. He turned it down, choosing to stay with me because love meant more than any trophy. The act humbled me, showing how far we had come from enemies to partners willing to give everything. As senior year approached, the journey felt complete, yet still unfolding. We had faced secrets, revelations, heartbreaks, and healing, emerging stronger with identities we no longer hid. The city that once felt overwhelming now felt like home because we had built it together. The road to acceptance was long and painful, but every step proved that real love could survive the harshest tests. With graduation on the horizon, we stood ready for whatever life threw next, knowing the bond forged in that shocking graduation night kiss had become our greatest strength. Graduation day arrived under clear Chicago skies, with caps flying and cheers echoing across the stadium. Riley and I stood side by side in our gowns, hands brushing secretly as names were called. "Vincent Thompson," the announcer said, and I walked the stage, heart full, knowing how far we had come from that fateful kiss 4 years earlier. Riley followed, his smile brighter than the stadium lights. Our family sat together in the stands, my parents still adjusting, but present, and Riley's dad offering a tentative nod of respect. The ceremony ended with hugs and promises, but the real celebration waited at our apartment, filled with friends from the Pride Center and a few teammates who had stayed loyal. Jake even showed up with a handshake and apology that sealed old wounds. As night fell, we slipped away to the same park where our secret meetings began, sitting on the familiar bench under glowing streetlights. "I love you," Riley said simply, and I replied the same, knowing those words carried every battle we had won. The years had taught us that self-discovery was not a single moment, but a daily choice to live authentically. Family expectations had bent, but not broken us. Societal pressure had tested our resolve, and in the end, love proved stronger than fear. We talked about the future, moving to a bigger city, pursuing dreams side by side, with no more hiding. The road ahead held unknowns, but we faced them together as equals, partners, and best friends. Looking back at the misunderstandings, the betrayals, and the sacrifices, I realized each one had shaped us into men who understood the true cost of acceptance. Riley's hand in mine felt like home, and the journey that started with hate had blossomed into something beautiful and real. As we walked back under the city stars, the past felt distant, the future bright. We had found not only each other but ourselves in the process. True love always finds a way if you are brave enough to fight for it. Is it possible for love to conquer every expectation family and society place upon us, or are some truths too heavy to carry alone? True or false?